Hello, my name is Dr. Gimel Rogers. I am a licensed psychologist in the state of California, Kansas, and Maryland. I am board certified in clinical psychology. Being board certified in clinical psychology has opened many doors and opportunities, one being consultation with for-profit and nonprofit companies. In these consultation meetings, sometimes as we're help building out content, whether for staff training or outward facing public information for their particular cause, a question that comes up is mental illness caused by a chemical imbalance? Now I'm going to briefly answer this question. So the answer broadly that one may usually get is yes. However, this explanation, while it's somewhat accurate, it's really driven by the pharmaceutical advertising company because it oversimplifies complex mental health conditions, and it's not fully supported by current neuroscience or psychological research. So while it is a part of it, it's not the full scope. So let's talk about the full scope. Class is now in session. So now you have one way to look at it is the diathesis stress model. Diathesis means that there's a pre-existing condition. Stress can be any stressor in your life. So if you have a diathesis, a pre-existing condition, and then let's say you have a stressor like a car accident or a divorce or a trauma such as sexual abuse or physical abuse or emotional abuse, that can trigger an underlying condition that was already present to bring on depression, to bring on schizophrenia, to bring on post-traumatic stress disorder, to bring on anxiety. So there is science behind the pre-existing condition, which means perhaps a person had low serotonin. Perhaps there are other transmitters, neurotransmitters such as dopamine or norepinephrine that could be playing a role. However, also one way to look at the diathesis stress model is understanding that there's multi-factors that come into play. When I say multi-factors, think about genetics, which are different than chemical imbalances. Genetics are different than neurotransmitters. Think about brain structure and function. Different areas of the brain, if they're not working properly, then you're not going to be able to fully function. Also, early life experiences such as trauma and attachment. We know that attachment starts in the womb. That's why doctors say talk to your belly, read to your belly, sing to your belly, because attachment starts even before the child enters into the world. There's also cognitive problems and learned behaviors. Social learning theory tells us we learn from our environment. So we pick up on different ways to handle stressors in our life. And also the environmental and social stressors such as poverty, isolation, and choose any ism, sexism, racism, ageism. So all of these factors come into play. So on one hand, yes, the pharmaceutical company has a small point. You take medication, you may feel better. But it's not the end all to be all. That's why there's alternative practices and cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy and other therapies and interventions that can help somebody who's struggling with a mental health disorder, because it's not all about chemical imbalances, which medications are used for. So why does it matter that it's not all about chemical imbalances? I am so glad that you had that question. So it matters because when we solely rely on chemical imbalances, it reduces hope in us. It can take away the autonomy that we have in our healing and in our treatment planning process. And so solely relying that it is a chemical imbalance, and that means it's purely biological, it's fixed, it's hard for it to be changed, it can reduce hope. So that's why we want to look at other factors. It also may discourage therapy, because if somebody says it's only a chemical imbalance, they may not want to go to therapy to further gain insight into what else may be contributing to how they are feeling and the decisions that they are making. It also may discourage a lifestyle change. We know that food affects our mood. And so, yes, food definitely interplays with some chemicals in our body, but you may not have the insight as the client if you don't go to therapy. So that's why it's interconnected. And lastly, it fails to acknowledge the role that trauma, systemic stress, and social context plays into the person's life and the decisions that they make. So again, yes, chemical imbalance plays a part, but there are other factors. And if we look at those other factors, then we can have hope that we can change, that we can become better people and make better decisions. So I hope this answered your question. If you would like more information, feel free to contact me. You can reach me at info, I-N-F-O, at 7fire8.com, or go to our website, www.7fire8.com. Or you can reach out to the larger organization at www.abpp.org for a specialist in your area. I hope you have a great day.